Hey everyone, welcome back to Voices from the Mausoleum. Back with me today, we have Chris for Love of Horror.
Love it here. I love it here.
Yes. And yeah, we have another TV series recap review for you. Today we're going to be talking about the Disney Plus reboot of Goosebumps. Now, Chris, was this something that you were excited for from like when the trailer dropped or when it was announced?
I was because I grew up on Goosebumps. I grew up reading Goosebumps books. Whenever my mom would give me like my money for the Scholastic Book Fair, like I was gonna find a Goosebumps book, and
Oh
that's how it
yeah.
was because that's the only kind of reading I like doing even now as an adult is just horror based stuff. And I remember watching the show when the show was originally out, and I was
Yeah.
super excited just to like reboot it and especially like they made the movie, which
Mhm.
with Jack Black, but nothing beats just watching episode for episode, and they did such a great job with this.
I appreciate what they tried with the Jack Black, but it just for me it didn't hit the mark.
I
And
agree. I
but how do you feel about this version? Did this version hit the mark for you?
I loved it for the main reason that it just brought back so many good stories that I enjoyed the most.
Yeah.
Like Slappy was always my favorite. The Haunted Mask was one of my top tier Goosebumps books, and
Yeah.
I loved that one. And just the way they had it flow throughout the whole entire show, it sat beautifully. It's definitely more of the teen version of Goosebumps, is the
Oh,
way I think they
sure.
definitely did it. Um, like Goosebumps was, I think it was technically teen when I was a kid, but you don't read it as a teen, you read it as a child because you just don't
Yeah.
care. Where,
Preteen,
yeah,
I feel like it was very much in that 12, 13.
yeah, and this one's
Right.
just above that. It's like right as you're entering high school, it's perfect just the way they let it flow, and
I
I
mean,
I
there
like
was
the
some
way.
stuff in this show that I was like, "Ooh, this is on Disney Plus.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting."
Anybody can watch this.
I was like, "Wow, okay, they actually said that."
Yeah,
There
but
was
they
a
did a great job.
I'll wait till after, the 15-minute mark. There's one reference, one joke in this that I was shocked that
That they
Disney
said
allowed.
it.
They said it, and well, we will get into that. I forgot which episode it was, but
Yeah,
I think there's like a rule you don't like. We don't want to say naughty things in the first 15
absolutely
minutes
not.
of
Yeah,
an episode.
gotta let people get all stuck into into the episode.
YouTube's got weird rules.
Yeah, and then you hit them with it.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I totally agree. I think this was so refreshing. It was a great return to form, definitely a little more mature. But like you said, I love how all the stories very set. This honestly, it's funny enough, gave me some House of Usher vibes
I
in the
agree. Yeah,
in the way that they adapted the stories to tell one cohesive narrative.
correct. They just took each like Goosebumps type book
Hmm.
and then just made the one big story out of it. But
Yeah.
you still get like each episode kind of still concentrates on that one single Goosebumps books. Like you have them all labeled the Haunted Mask. They concentrate on that Haunted Mask, but it fits
Mhm.
so well into the overall story of
Yeah.
throughout the 10 episodes that it just is phenomenal.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's talk about sort of the driving force of the haunts, right? So it all sort of starts off with the Biddle house,
Yep.
right? So Justin Long is moving into town. He buys this or he inherits this house from his ancestors, right? Or from his, like, relatives that I guess he doesn't have much to do with,
Yeah,
but
he doesn't even know who they
he
are.
doesn't even really know who they are,
He
but
just got a house out of it.
he's next in succession for this house. And but this house is sort of known in town as being like haunted, right?
Hmm.
There's a lot of stories about Biddle and the mystery behind his death in
Yep.
this house, right? I don't know if we get the immediate flashback with the fire in this, or we do we? Is it
No, I don't think they do it in that first episode. They
no?
just are very adamant about him dying in the basement.
Right.
You do get the I did like at the beginning of this episode is when they're doing all those flashbacks
Hmm.
and you really get a feel for what all the other episodes are going to be. Because if you remember, you have Harold in the house. He's setting up that mask, and then he
Yeah.
is by his tank of worms. And they did a great job of just kind of foreshadowing everything that's going to happen in this. And it was great seeing that on the rewatch because you just see everything that you're going to see later in the series.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they don't really, but then it just turns out to, oh, he died in the basement. That's it. And it's a haunted, he died in the basement. They
Right.
really don't
The
give you
mystery was there,
anything.
and then yeah,
Yeah,
they do a great job of slowly unraveling it as it goes on.
absolutely.
But I do love this setting up of the haunted objects
Mhm.
basement, right? All of these things that eventually play into the characters' individual arcs and stories. It almost had it gave me almost Twilight Zone vibes a little bit because
Okay, I see that.
of Twilight Zone, or not purpose, but like you take someone who's living a mundane life, there's some character flaw, and then you just drop one little supernatural object or element into their life, and then you see
Yeah.
unravels.
Yeah,
There's
that's basically, if you think about it in the grand scheme of the whole entire show, that's exactly what happened.
right. There was an artifact for each of our main characters to really
Yep.
test their flaws or to really or bring out something that they've been holding back, right?
Yep.
So let's dive in. So this pilot episode, this first episode, right? There's a lot of legwork it has to do, right? So it's got to set up Biddle House with Harold. You have to set up this connection with Mr. Bratt getting the house, and then we're introduced to our core five, right? So
Yeah.
we have
Yeah.
Isaiah, Isabella, James, Lucas, and Margot,
Yep.
right? And they're all sort of dealing with. I don't know if the first episode necessarily dove into what everyone was dealing with per se, because we get a sense of like, you know, James is an out gay kid in his school,
Yep.
um, sort of obviously struggling to kind of connect, wants to date, so that's sort of established. He has a support system within his friends,
Absolutely.
right? Isabella, sort of reserved,
Very
yeah,
reserved. Very
right? And I
reserved.
think that's hinted at, right? Obviously, the second episode
Yeah.
really dives into it, but it's certainly very reserved, keeping to herself. Isaiah, the up and coming sports hero,
The
right?
NFL quarterback, but they do touch on just NFL quarterback status, big sports guy,
Hmm.
parents who are clearly riding him for those sports.
Right, and this
You
was
could
his
see
episode.
it yeah, and it was introduced at when you're just getting it because you could tell the differences he feels because he
Hmm.
feels like he has to do it for his parents, not just for him. He
Yeah,
needs to do it for his parents. But he's
exactly.
just like your typical jock kind of deal.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's exactly what he is.
I mean, this is a story that we've seen play out in other teen dramas for sure. But you throw in this supernatural element,
Mhm.
and it just kind of takes on a different flavor.
Absolutely.
And then we get Lucas, who's sort of this goofball, kind of jackassy type, right? He's
He
always
is the definition of chaos.
chaos, right?
Every time that man came up on the screen, he was doing something chaotic, and I was like, he is chaos.
All the stunts,
Yeah.
just wants to get a reaction.
Yep.
I believe it's established in this episode that his dad died.
Yes.
So we do know that he's dealing with loss. His
Correct.
his mom Nora runs like a deli shop by the harbor.
Yep.
So we're interested in that, and then we have Margot, and we have sort of this love triangle sort of set up between her and
Yeah,
Isaiah
did they touch on it enough in that first episode? I think they touch on it
a little
enough.
bit.
Yeah, just a little bit because if you have to remember, I even on the rewatch, I completely forgot that like Isaiah was dating somebody in the first episode. I was
Right,
like,
I forgot
she
Isaiah's
like came on
girlfriend's name.
screen,
Yeah,
Ashley,
Ashley.
Ashley, and I just remember she came up on screen. And I was like, who is that? And because I completely forgot, like she is important to a point. I feel like she
Yeah,
was just kind of there to really set them up for where their story wanted to go.
right.
Make it seem like you obviously have this popular jock who needs to be with somebody. That's how
Mhm.
every show movie is. They have to be with like the cutest girl in school or something like that. But I completely forgot that like Ashley existed. I was like, oh boy.
I think so did he.
Yeah. Oh, he for sure did.
He for sure forgot his girlfriend
Yeah.
existed. So let's get into this. So this pilot episode is really an adaptation of Say Cheese and Die.
Yep.
And I love getting into where these artifacts come from. The kids decide to throw a Halloween party at the Biddle house, completely unaware that it's been inherited by Mr. Bratt,
Yep.
their new
Because
English teacher.
yeah, because Isaiah uses his dad's coat because he was contracting over there.
That's
So his
right.
dad had met Brat
Hmm.
and he said he was moving in, but of course their venue fell through, so they went to that one because he's like, "Oh, I got my dad's code, and we're good to go." Yep,
Right.
having no idea that somebody took it over.
And I love that we kept coming back to this Halloween party.
Yep,
which is
I think
so cool.
every episode almost touches on the Halloween
Pretty much
party.
the first half, right?
Yeah, the first half for sure.
And it's all sort of like, because that's how most of the kids get their hands on
Yep,
these
all the
artifacts,
artifacts.
mostly, right? I think the only one that maybe didn't was the diary
Yeah,
for Margot. But
yeah, the diary.
so the party happens, and Isaiah ends up with this camera,
Yep, that he
who
got from the basement,
that he got from the basement,
which was locked.
which was locked. So,
Locked. But remember, Brad's blood opened it
oh, that's right. I
when
like that reveal.
he cut himself because Ben said that you couldn't open it, and he ended up cutting himself on something, and the
Mm,
blood sucked up, and then it was automatically open for perfect timing when the Halloween party was happening.
that was perfect, right? And I guess,
Yeah,
I totally forgot that's what it was, and I'm
yeah.
wondering, right? Given the reveals later, well, no, well, we know he has a connection to the house, right?
Yes.
By this
Yeah,
episode,
yeah.
so I'm wondering, right, if it was like a gene thing. Oh, we recognize you
As somebody who's allowed in this
as
basement
someone who's allowed in,
because you're
right?
family.
Because your family. So that is interesting. I always forget that. That was cool.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so he ends up with this camera that is revealing, how someone is going to die or something
Get
bad is going to happen.
injured, yeah, die, and that's what I loved about this episode because that's exactly how the book is. That's
Mhm.
exactly how the book is, and I remember watching that episode before Ryan Gosling became this big wig, and he was in that Goosebumps episode. He was
Yeah.
a tiny child, but that's exactly how it is, and it was just predicting basically the future. It was, oh, like he took a photo of his dad's car, and when the photo came out, the dad's car has crashed, and they did a great job putting that in. And I mean, you're thinking about a book that was published in like 1992,
Yeah.
and they stayed right on track with it. And that's what happened. I mean, he took that photo of Ashley, and she had the white eyes on the floor of the woods, and then he had the picture of Margot who was having her allergic reaction.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really like, and I'm trying to remember the original adaptation because I almost feel like there might have been an Are You Afraid of the Dark episode that had something similar to this. But in the original, was there a chandelier in the
uh
original adaptation?
I don't remember if that one had a chandelier. I know the first photo did take place like in a walkway kind of deal because he
Mhm.
was leaning on a staircase, but I can't remember if that original Goosebumps one had a chandelier. I don't know
'Cause
if
I
it was
remember
just
like
the
a
background.
chandelier like falling on someone, but like,
Actually, you know what that's reminding me of is the Ouija movie.
oh no, but I remember this having a camera involved.
Well, no, I think there was a
Oh,
camera involved in the Ouija movie. If I remember correctly, I think there was a photo with the chandelier because I think she falls over. I'm trying to remember now. I'm gonna have to rewatch that movie. I think it's the Origin of Evil one. I think
the
it's
Mike
that
Flanagan
version.
one,
Yeah, I think that's exactly
which
which
I
one
never
it
saw.
is.
I need to see that just because it's Mike Flanagan.
Yeah, so I think that for sure had something camera wise.
Yeah, but I
But there's
almost
been so
remember,
many movies with cameras. It's crazy.
I almost remember like someone taking a picture, and then in the picture was like a little gremlin thing. Or like,
Ooh,
I don't know. Now I'm
can't
totally blanking. Anyway, totally going on a tangent here.
remember.
But while all this is happening, right? So Ashley gets attacked in the woods or confronted in the woods by Harold Biddle.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't think we ever found out his name right away. So I think
Okay.
because if you remember at the beginning when they're introducing Harold, they never really talk about Harold that
Well, he is
much.
in flames. Well, you see this
Yeah,
flame.
he's in flames, and then when his face is there, just don't think you really knew who he was yet. You just
Right.
knew something was coming after
Something
them.
was following. Right.
Something was coming after them.
So Ashley is well, we know, and we're not withholding. This is obviously a spoiler conversation, so
Yeah, absolutely.
which is fine. But yeah, so Ashley is confronted by this flame ghost, Biddle, and then we have right Margot's allergy,
Yep, her anaphylactic shock that she
anaphylactic
went
shock,
into.
and then so the other one was the car.
Yeah, no, 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 that was just from the original.
Oh shoot!
No, the last photo was when James was like, "No, this isn't haunted," and just took a photo of Isaiah, and it was him with his broken arm.
Oh, that's right, and
I
then we
think
get
there was only 3 photos taken. I think it
there's
was
only 3
just 3
photos.
of them.
It
Yeah.
it did feel a little bit rushed because, like, we had so much introduction.
Yeah.
So the say cheese part, I feel like, was very truncated towards the end, right?
Yeah.
Which is fine, which is
Yeah.
okay. The camera never really came back around.
No.
Uh, but we do get this really cool moment, right, towards the end, right before he, gets hurt on the field. We know that Nora, which is Lucas's mom, also sees the ghost.
Yes. I thought that was crazy when I was watching it because that's exactly what happened is, he smashed the camera, and then that's when they were in the halftime, and he opened the locker, and the camera was there.
Hmm.
But I thought the way they shot that scene in general was phenomenal because you see Isaiah start seeing the flames that are coming around the field.
Yeah,
And then when they pan to Nora and all you see is it on her eyeball, like in her eyes, I
yeah,
was like, that was so beautifully shot because you're like, she knows what's going on, but nobody else knows what's going on.
right.
She knows though.
So immediately the spotlight is on her,
Yeah,
right? We know she's involved in this mystery somehow,
absolutely.
right? There's some connecting thread. But then, right, he gets tackled, or whatever it was, so he breaks his leg,
His arm.
his arm, sorry,
Yeah, his throwing arm.
his throwing arm, taking him out for the season.
Yep.
It's so funny. In so many of these stories, I always, even think they did this on Degrassi, right, where someone's like happy they get taken out because then they don't have to deal with the pressure.
Yeah. Well, because if you remember right before that is when he walked in on his parents arguing
Yeah,
about, how his academics were going down, and
right.
his mom was yelling at the father about how sports aren't gonna cover everything, it's not gonna cover us and this and that, and he walked into that, and that's what I'm
Mhm.
saying, like, he just had so much pressure. You could tell he's that jock with just so much pressure from his parents.
And how
Um,
hopeless it is. Like even his mom's admitting, like, yeah, just this sports scholarship and all of that
it's not
probably won't
enough.
even help that much.
Yeah, it's not enough, especially when he doesn't have his academics,
Right.
and obviously dad just wants him to keep doing well in football.
So in his
So
mind, it's like, what am I even doing this for? Right.
mhm,
I'm breaking my neck to get a scholarship, possibly,
yeah.
um, but it may not even help.
So I think he was upset that he broke his arm, but at the same time, a little happy that he gets a little break.
Probably happy, a little relieved.
Yeah.
I forget where it ends. Did it end? Does it end just on the field?
Um, no, that's
Oh,
because he
Brad.
goes in the yeah, that's when Nathan Bratt is in the house and just gets possessed. Here we go.
Hmm.
Standing there and nice gray smoke coming into his mouth. Poor Justin Long, man.
Oh, but he
Every
plays this like brat character
it,
so well.
he was incredible. He was absolutely
Well,
incredible.
because he's playing like multiple characters, right?
Yeah, if you think about it, he does play technically two separate characters because he's playing Nathan Bratt, your standard little English teacher who's adorable and just wants to be your best friend. And then you have him playing Harold, who is out for blood. And
Yeah.
I think they purposely did something like that because you have somebody who's so innocent being possessed by somebody so dark and wants the blood.
Yeah,
And he did a great job switching from both of them.
absolutely.
He was
Quite
incredible.
literally in that one episode too.
Oh
Just
yeah,
loved it. And then
if I
at the
stab
very end,
myself, I get back into my body.
and then not to jump too far ahead, but at the very end too, there's this a third twist, right, or another twist
Yeah.
where he gets to sort of stretch his acting chops a little bit more.
Yep.
But the second episode was the adaptation I was looking forward to the most
I agree.
because this is the one Goosebumps adaptation that just always stayed with me. And that's the Haunted Mask.
Yep.
I, as a kid, would have a reoccurring nightmare, going back to the original adaptation, of the parade of masks chasing Carly Beth.
Oh yeah.
And I would have a nightmare of them coming down my hallway, coming at me. Like,
Oh
it was
yeah.
the whole thing.
And those were like they did a great job with the mask on that. That was the only thing I was a little disappointed in was the mask wasn't as top notch as Goosebumps
The
had it.
mask of itself, no.
But
The-
when it's actually taking over, yeah.
yeah.
Same deal, just like it was in Goosebumps. I just felt like the mask itself was a little more terrifying in Goosebumps
Yeah, oh,
than
definitely.
attached to
Hands down.
somebody. Yeah. But they did a great job with it, just the same way. They just
Yeah.
took exactly what happened in the Goosebumps story and put it into a beautiful episode, and
Well,
we
that's
got
the
so
thing,
much.
right? Like, the character arc for Carly Beth in the original was also about her, like, finding her voice, sort of,
Yep,
like, speaking up for us because she was bullied,
she was bullied. Yep.
and she just sort of, like, I remember her getting mad at her mom for making her dress cute for Halloween or
Yeah.
something, like, she was just feeling very, like, she was stuck in her shell.
Yeah, I think my
Um
favorite fun fact about that too is that R.L. Stein only wrote that because he watched his son put on a Frankenstein mask and had trouble getting it off.
Oh,
That is the only reason why he wrote that,
I didn't know that.
which is hilarious. That all I picture is like R.L. Stein just sitting on the couch and like watching his kid try like struggling to get this Frankenstein mask off, and was like, "Yep, here we go.
He's like, "Oh, this is so."
Here's a new seller."
Oh, man, I love that, but Isabella, right? So, very much a character stuck in her shell,
Yep.
but we find out that she's actually the troll that's been tormenting the students,
Yeah.
because she's had this mask. So it goes back, she finds this mask
In the basement
in the
of the
basement,
Halloween party.
who allows her. Well, first it gives her confidence, right?
So much confidence. Totally
Because at
different
this
person.
Halloween party, right, she then comes out, she's sexy,
Oh, yeah.
she's being flirtatious. Carly Beth didn't give us that, right, Rachel?
No,
Although
no, no. Carly Benz did not give us that.
first element, we knew this wasn't just a kid's show.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, what? They're giving her sex appeal? What's happening? But
Yep.
I like that, and she's sort of making eyes, kind of through the
Oh,
mask,
yeah.
But then it starts to escalate. There's conflict with Lucas, who ruins her drone camera,
Yep. Breaks her
right? He's
drone
like
camera.
hopping off the roof, grabbing it, fall.
Yep. Once again, chaos. Just chaos.
And then she absolutely eviscerates Lucas
Oh, yeah.
and the principal.
Yeah,
Or no,
as
not the principal, the counselor.
the counselor, as the troll. As the
Yeah,
troll that she turned into, because it was after that confident night, after the party, that she was starting to struggle to take it off.
yeah.
And I liked that they did concentrate a lot on her on this, and they even brought in her brother at that time, little Alan, I think his name was,
Hmm.
to just kind of be a part of it and see what's going on. So it just makes you feel harder because he's so young, but he's trying
Yeah.
to keep up to help her. He's trying to help her the best he
Hmm.
can.
And it ends up being a whole physical altercation, right? But, I mean,
Oh,
she
yeah.
literally becomes a troll,
Yeah.
which I love that as
It A
literally
troll in a
being.
hoodie was not what I was expecting. A troll just running around in a hoodie was not it.
No, no, not what I was expecting. I mean, I appreciate this as the adaptation that we got in 2023.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really, and her being sort of an internet troll to a literal troll, I
Uh-huh.
think beautiful. Um, and I think totally something that R.L. Stein would have, if he had written that now,
Oh, yeah.
would have been the version he would have written,
No doubt. No doubt.
hands down. But then then we really see Isabella because Isaiah comes in, right?
Yes. Isaiah and Margot come
Mhm.
to rescue Lucas
Come into the rescue
from the troll,
from the troll.
Isabella.
So this really sort of, while it took her too far in terms of the things that she was saying and doing, and it did sort of become the segue with which then she kind of became part of this group,
Yep.
right?
That's exactly how she basically entered this group
Mhm.
fully and friendly with all of them.
Yeah.
Because she really wasn't a part of it at the beginning when they're planning the Halloween party and everything like
No,
that.
totally on the outskirts, right?
And she was just switched over, and now she's in this group now.
Yeah. So the next one, the Cuckoo Clock of Doom.
Well, you
So
have to remember they did lead us into it in the last episode,
so did
because that's when
is this when the oh,
Isabella's
that's right.
mom
That was a
didn't want Isabella home by herself, so
yes.
brought it to James' house, because that's also, you have to remember, that's when all the parents met up in the yard to talk about. And Nora's telling them, Harold is back, and he's coming
Hmm.
after our children. And then that's when Isabella's playing pool with James, and the pool ball hits him, and he is now Goosebumps Goo. And you're like, what
Blood.
just happened?
That was yeah,
That
that
was
was
wild.
the cliffhanger that I was like, "What the
Yeah,
hell?
you're like, "Where did James go? Has James been fake this whole
Why
time?"
did he explode?"
Yeah, it just exploded. But it was good because that's when you really start the talk about what did these parents do to this Harold guy that's clearly coming for everybody.
Mhm.
And Nora's telling them, and you could tell all the other parents are like, "This isn't happening. Like you're crazy." Like you can
Yeah.
tell that they were not in for it, and
No,
they
no, they
didn't
really
believe
are
anything.
scapegoating Nora. I
Yeah,
felt
they
so
didn't believe.
bad for Nora all throughout this whole season.
Yeah,
You know?
she's and I love her. I love that actress in general. She was phenomenal. Like I've been rewatching Lucifer. I love her in Lucifer. She is a
Oh, I
phenomenal.
never seen Lucifer. I didn't know she was in it.
Lucifer's phenomenal. Highly
Okay. Oh,
recommend.
I have to
It's
I know I have to
a
watch it.
great show. But yeah, she plays the therapist in it, and she's
Oh,
a
that's
great
cool.
actress. But yeah, you feel bad for her the whole time because she's really new from the beginning. Like this
Yeah.
is what's happening. Something is wrong, and you could tell all the other parents just wanted to forget everything that happened.
Yeah. Interesting,
Um,
yeah, she gets scapegoated or, like, ignored or kind of shut out in the same episode that Isabella is also kind of finding her voice, so
yeah,
there's definitely some parallels in sort of Nora's character.
yeah, and it like parallels perfectly almost with like when I'm watching it, all I think of is like a Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, granted, they don't really address it fully in the beginning, but what the parents did
Mhm.
to Freddy, and now he's coming after their kids, gave me the same type of vibe, especially because he just keeps coming after them in
Yeah.
these different realms kind of deal.
Oh, I'm a sucker for, like, a sins of the parent kind of story.
Oh, absolutely.
I
It's
love that.
always fun.
I love that stuff so much.
Yeah.
But, yeah, and then we get James exploding at the end of Haunted Mask, leading us into, "Alright, what the hell is that all about?" And we get the cuckoo clock of doom. So once again, we're flashing back to the Halloween party,
Yep.
where they're going in the basement, and then James, because 'cause we've seen this, but now it's almost like a vantage point situation,
Yep.
because James bumps into the cuckoo clock.
Hits his head
Um,
right on the cuckoo clock.
yeah, and then he's like, we could tell in that first episode that he's sort of out of it, but we're like, "Oh, he must maybe just hit his head or whatever." But now we actually find out, no, he's like looping.
He's in a Back to the Future loop right now.
He is looping through this party.
And that was the most trippy episode out of all of them so far. So trippy
Yeah.
because he would every time he walked out of the front door, he was back bumping his head.
Yeah, just
And you're like,
right back to
"Yep,
the initial bump, and I mean, very cute because, as any teenager, he's like, I love that he's sort of like, "Okay, how can I use this to my advantage?"
and that's exactly what he did. He did it with Sam because
Yeah.
they were talking about the soccer and stuff like that. And he's like, type in, and he would take notes on his phone
Mhm.
and
"What's
write
your
down,
name?"
okay, he
"Oh,
likes
okay."
Arsenal. Yeah, he likes Arsenal. Okay, perfect. Then we can talk about that.
Right.
So he did use it to his advantage and never thought about the consequences that was
No.
going to happen from him in this time lapse. He just took advantage.
No, exactly, and so he's sort of doing this over and over again. I forget how many times he actually does it.
He did it a ton because I don't think they ever actually tell you how many times. Because if you remember how many dupes came out, you
Mhm.
never could keep track of how many dupes there were.
Well, no, that's the thing. So he's doing it until sort of the cycle breaks. And I forgot exactly why did the cycle break finally.
Because Sam was like, "Oh, do you want to go home with me?" And he was like, "Yes, like absolutely." So he took out the piece from the cuckoo clock so that it wasn't going to
So it wouldn't
keep,
loop back.
so it couldn't loop back again. So that's why. So
He
Sam, the
figured it out
little
on the
love
spot.
interest, yeah, the love interest stopped the cycle. If you
Gotcha.
think about it,
Oh yeah. And but then we find out, right, that he gets captured by these copies
all
every
of the
time he
copies,
looped.
it made copies of, and it was crazy is that if you think about it, all the copies, some of them were different. Like,
Yeah.
you would think that every time he was going in the loop, he was still dressed as that sexy cat.
Yeah.
So you had some that were just as the sexy cat, but then you also had some that were just like the one at the end of episode 2 when he explodes by the pool table.
Oh
So
yeah.
they're dressed differently. So I want to know why they were dressed differently. Like,
Yeah.
did he end up getting into a loop at a different time?
Do they?
Because
Yeah.
if you think about it, if I was to loop right now, I should only be in this. I'm looping
Hmm.
from here, looping around. So I did notice that that was a little different
Or
with
did
him.
he change during some of the loops?
And that's what I'm thinking too. He
Right.
had to
He
have
probably
changed.
changed clothes. Like, there were probably cycles that we just weren't shown. We just sort
Yeah,
of have to make the assumption that there were so many that we just didn't see.
yeah. But yeah, he gets captured by them and
Which
thrown into this like mine, just in the just pit.
and they're gonna take over.
Yep, they were like, "Yep, we're in charge now. We're gonna do what we got to do."
Hmm. And they're messing with his friends. They're sort of like getting him sort of not exile, but like they're messing with his relationships.
Oh yeah,
They're like dissing the love interest,
yep.
the friends, the family,
I
right?
think it was talking back to his mom too.
Yeah.
That one of the dupes was doing that. And obviously they knew what was going on. They knew something was going on. Because when was it? One of them exploded. I think when he was attacking the friends, I think, and Margot hit him and he exploded, and they were all confused on what just happened and why he just exploded into goop everywhere. And I
Yeah.
think yeah, was it Margot or Isabella? Isabella.
Isabella, right? Because Isabella's the one.
Yeah,
That's where the story kind of flips, right? So we're
yeah.
getting this like loop time story, and
Mhm.
then the second half of it, we're getting this kind of like invasion of the body snatchers kind of
Yeah, that's
tale,
basically exactly what's happening.
right? With Isabella sort of taking over as like the protagonist, sort of, because then we're still getting James in the pit,
Yeah.
but she's trying to go around and convince everybody.
Kick trying to convince the best she can, and finally she gets like Isaiah and Lucas and Margot all on board to believe that there's multiple Jameses running around,
Hmm.
and basically if you hit them, they explode, and that's the kind of their concept. So they have to go
Yeah.
find the real James,
Yeah.
and that's what they start doing. They go to find the real James.
But while this is all going, I think this is when we find out that they're actually on a mission to find the suitcase.
Yes. Well, because they only know a little bit because this was the same time that Nora, because Margot goes to Nora to talk about what is going on because she
Hmm.
obviously knows something. And that's when Nora tells her that your mother can tell you what's going on. Like your mom knows what's going on.
Yeah.
And she called her mom in Seattle and was just like, no, I'm not telling you anything. Like, I'm
Right.
not.
That was the first attempt.
Yeah, that was the first attempt trying to get any kind of information of what was happening. Um, but yeah, because Margot's mom said that like you can't trust any of the parents, is what
And
she told her.
Margot, it really is becoming like the sleuth of the group,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
And then obviously leading into eventually her episode. But yeah, I sort of like that this setup is happening, right? That she's
Yeah.
really the investigator.
Yeah, because going back to what you were saying with the suitcase is because that's when one of the dupes tells, I think they just tell the friend group that they're working for Brat
Hmm.
and need to go retrieve this suitcase.
Right.
And that's how they all find out what's going on because they're like, no, like we're dupes, but we're working for Brat and we need to get this suitcase now
Yeah.
because that's what he needs. And that's so they're almost on like you said, like a dual mission. They're like, gotta find the real James
Yeah.
and also find out what the heck this suitcase is all about.
So I know they rescue him from the pit. Sort of this
Yep.
whole like I love this underground
The,
brawl fight with all the
this
Jameses.
the scene of Isaiah hitting the real James to think if he was gonna explode had me cackling. That was so why did you hit me? it was just
Oh, it
it
was
was
very
so
funny.
funny. It was
This
hilarious.
Yeah, no, this show had great
Yeah.
comedy weaved throughout.
And James was such a great character. He was comedy. Him and Lucas, the two of them were just chaos.
Yeah,
But they just made it so much funnier. They made it great.
absolutely. And so I think this is the end of the episode, right? Is when Brat takes out possessed Brat takes out one of the Jameses when he finds the case is empty.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what happened was in that.
And I think
Um,
that's where we ended it.
yeah, because he asked like where his friend is.
Where is his friend? And we don't know who the
Yeah,
friend is.
and then
Well, I had a guess of like he's saying friend, and we're looking at a suitcase. I'm like,
you're like, you know what it is.
we
I read the books.
we know it's Slappy. We
yeah.
know. But,
Um,
not that I think they were trying to hide it too much. I think it's
yeah.
Slappy's all over the posters,
I was gonna say he's on the poster. Yeah,
we
everybody knew. And
know,
you look up the names of the episodes, and you're like, yeah, well, I know
right,
it's
we
gonna
know
be
he's
him.
the big bad.
I think one
Uh,
of my favorite Easter eggs in that episode is when James is going after like one of the dupes
Mhm.
They kind of have a, Halloween moment, which I loved. So James is outside of the window, just how,
Oh,
like, Michael Myers would be
yes.
staring, and then by the time, like, Margot gets in gone, like,
Yes.
there for a split second, and I was like, "Wow, it's just, like, hidden, just like Halloween." I was
Thank
like,
you
"This
for
is great."
reminding me that
Yeah,
about that reference. Yes, that
I
was
love that. I love the little references and things.
I
Makes me
love it.
happy.
I mean, anytime someone references that scene, I like there's the Paranorman does it,
Oh,
that
yeah,
cartoon. Yeah,
Paranorman. I love
like,
that movie.
straight shot to my heart.
Yeah.
But the 4th one, and I gotta say this 4th one was probably one of my favorite adaptations between this and Cuckoo Clock, is Go Eat Worms.
Yeah.
Um, it was emotional. I
I
really
agree.
loved Lucas's story.
Yeah.
And the grief and the loss of his dad. And his dad's like a stunt man,
Mhm.
right? So it sort of explains Lucas's antics of like, I'm gonna be
Being
just like my
chaos.
dad.
Yeah,
I'm
being
gonna do
chaos.
stupid shit and just get hurt and
I'm gonna
um
skateboard off the roof of the deli, and you're like, "What are you doing?
what are you doing?
What went through your head?"
But so this is a reference. So if we remember from the first episode, which I know we didn't talk about, but like he is like daring everyone to eat worms.
Yep.
So I think he does eat a worm in
Yeah,
the
I think
at the
he
party.
does. Yeah.
But he decides to take all the worms home as pets
From the basement. From the
from the
basement.
basement, this whole
The
tank of
big
worms,
tank of worms.
and he keeps them next to his bed,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So this was one of my favorite gross out scenes. Is the worms leaving the tank and then crawling into him?
Oh, yeah.
It was
Can't do
so good.
crawling like that.
It was so good, creepy, and
Yeah.
like worms don't usually freak me out. They did here.
But I think, like, when they're inside of you, that's a different
Yeah. Oh yeah.
story.
Yeah.
But, yeah, at the beginning of the episode too, you gotta remember I feel like they introduced so much in this episode,
Well, the parents,
but
right?
so much to the point where you can still understand. But
Yeah.
you know it's gonna be very important into the story. And then, like you said, like, it was so emotional, it made you feel the emotions for Lucas. But, yeah, they start off with, Nora and I always forget his name, Margot's dad, the
Mhm.
principal, are having an affair. And you knew throughout the last couple episodes before that that Margot would talk about her parents fighting a lot
Mhm.
and kind of not being very present together
Yeah.
very well. Um, so you just see the introduction of the two of them having an affair, and you're like, oh boy, like this is where is this going to go now?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Nora being a widow, and then I think we know that they're separated,
Yeah, they're
Margot's parents.
separate.
So, I mean, we classified it as an affair, I guess so,
Well,
right?
technically, they classified it
They
as
did
affair
classify it.
because Nora did say a widow and a married man, but you could tell he was just not
Mhm.
there anymore in his
No.
marriage. It was not. It was long gone. But technically, he's
Technically,
still,
it is. Yeah,
yeah,
we
still
know
an
they're
affair.
separated,
Yeah,
well, that's to be fair, we don't quite know the separation agreement at this point yet, right?
yeah. We don't.
Um, but the fact that we're even talking about affairs and a separation agreement, like, and Goosebumps, I was like,
Hey,
"Oh, okay,
Goosebumps.
yes."
Yeah, we're talking about this in a children's show.
We're
Supposed to be.
getting yeah, yeah, so this was really it really is upping. I did like the adult drama because typically in teen shows, the adult drama tends to be a distraction. A lot of
Yeah,
people don't, and it also sometimes feels sort of sidelined and sort of feels like filler. Here it felt pretty organic because the adult storyline is starting to, we're starting to build up how tied it is into the past
yep,
and the mystery. And it's also fueling so much of Lucas's stuff, right? Because Lucas sees them
yeah,
together, fueling his own anger and coming and bumping up against his grief. Who then tells Margot,
yes, yeah.
right? And because he
Tells
tells her
Margot.
before the worms take over him, I think,
I
right?
think he tells. I
She
think
comes
I
up to
thought
his room.
I thought the worm started taking over, and he told her
I can't remember, but
because right after that, because the worms were in him when he jumped off the roof on the dirt bike
right.
onto his car. So I can't remember if maybe he did tell Margot just prior to that.
Because I remember him like her leaving, and then I think he goes to bed, and then the worms come in. But there is a moment I think 'cause I don't know if it's he's like, "Where's the worms?" or she's like, "Where's the worms?"
Yeah,
I can't remember. But anyway,
just watch.
or not necessarily matters. That's besides the
Yeah.
point, right? So now both of these two are sort of dealing with like, oh, our parents are together and we're having an affair, but it's affecting us in different ways, right? Margot being like, oh, my parents are separated. It's kind of, were they going to get back together? We don't know. This sort
Yeah,
of,
I think
uh,
she was more upset than Lucas, because I think
yeah.
Margot doesn't wanna let go of her family. I don't think she wanted to let go of it. And I feel like Lucas is upset to a point, but
Hmm.
at the same time, he just doesn't care. He's just a very
Yeah.
carefree kind of character.
Well, I'm wondering if part of it, even if it wasn't stated explicitly, feeling like his dad is being replaced, right?
Yeah,
I can imagine that going through a kid's head.
absolutely. Oh
Right.
yeah, because no, I think you're right because I think he did tell Margot in the room because that's when he goes to take the first worm and he's like, "You want to watch me eat it?" And it goes
Yes.
up his nose instead.
Goes up his
So
nose.
that's what, and then that's when the worms take over.
Exactly.
They start taking over.
Well, then he starts to find out, and I think it was in the with the locker that he can't get hurt,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, he can't
And
because
he's
his
like,
fingers. That was a
his finger
gross.
snapped.
Oh, that was a
It was
gross scene
like,
too.
can't feel it. Snap it back. I guess we're
Yeah,
good. And
because
then
then the chick behind him who was like, "I'm gonna go throw up," died. I was
so
like,
good.
"Yeah, I feel you. I feel you." I'm like in that same boat.
Oh man, but for someone like Lucas, who is a total, jackass wannabe on MTV, right? This is like, oh, great, I could do anything and not get hurt.
Yep. And right prior to that too is when you see another interaction between Brett and Lucas, because
Hmm.
Lucas had taken the keychain with the eyeball,
Oh
and Brett
yeah,
was like, "Where did you get that?" And he was like, "No, like that's my no-no zone or whatever it was." He was saying something like that, and you're like, "Okay, well that eyeball's important." And people who have watched Goosebumps, we know what the eyeball is
it's a
for,
doll's eye when we're like, okay.
but you can see just how crazy the tension is getting for
Hmm.
everything. Just that conversation alone was just the
Well, Brad's is
tension
like,
giving.
Brad's realizing, oh, these kids, they're in the way of what my goal is, right?
Yep.
They're standing between me and my friend.
Yep.
Um, but then I'm trying to think between that because then sort of Lucas then decides to take it out on Margot's dad and drive the motorbike because well, first they see him walking the bike through the school, which was very funny.
Yeah, chaos. I was like,
Funny.
what school allows that?
I mean, sure. And
Yeah.
then turns out he's on the roof and
Yep.
he's gonna do a jump and lands right on Margot's
Right on his car, right on the windshield.
and he's about to get expelled, suspended, whatever. And he's like, "Screw you," and then
Yeah.
goes off.
Well, because
And he's gonna do a jump.
because remember he said that um, I'm gonna have to expel you and this and that, and he was like, well, maybe if you stop banging my mom or something like that.
That was another one of the things they said. I was like, "Okay,
Yeah, I was
goosebumps.
like, oh, righty.
All right."
Yeah, and then that's when he wants to go do the crazy jump that
Mhm.
his dad supposedly tried to do.
Yeah. And then he's confronted by Margot and his mom go to help him.
Yep.
And then it's when we get this worm amalgamation beast.
Well, that was because he threw up.
He
Remember,
threw
because
up.
that was the most emotional part is when
Yeah.
Nora was telling him, like, your dad didn't just do this for fun. Like, he
Yeah.
left a note. He was a suicidal male, and this is why he did this jump. Like, he went into this jump knowing he was not going to make it,
Yeah.
and that was such like a heartfelt thing just between Nora and Lucas. And just hearing that is when he throws up all these worms, and we basically that the way I saw it is it looks almost identical to the mind flare in Stranger Things.
Oh, yeah. I can see that.
It looks like the mind flare. I don't know if that's what they were going for, but this worm thing was just atrocious.
Just atrocious. And I love yes, I love that finally as he's expressing his feelings and really confronting the grief and what his father did and what his father was going through, that really he literally got it out.
Yeah,
Right? So the worms really became all this stuff, this trauma that he was holding on to. And he
yeah,
finally was able to kind of get it out. Boom, the monster came out.
yeah. I think this was the strongest with just making feelings. Like
Yeah.
all you had your feelings. Like you wouldn't think that you go into shows wanting to feel all these feelings, but this one really took it almost to that art horror situation where there's a deeper meaning to it, and you're
Mhm.
like, this is he's confronting these feelings now, and that's why he
Yeah.
got sick because of these feelings, and it's
And then
basically just rid him of the possession of the worms. I
right,
guess that's the
right.
best way to put it.
And then we get into this really fun, like, action sequence, right? This
Yep.
chase.
Yep.
As they're leading this worm creature into, like, the factories,
Yep.
or lumber mill, whatever the
It's
heck it was.
like a lumberyard harbor situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But really just the car chase, I think it was just really well shot and done, and I really appreciated it. It was pretty fun
Yep. And that's when they put him in that wood chipper.
in the wood
The,
chipper.
wood chipper and dies, and that's when the police are coming, and
And then, yeah,
Nora
Laura takes
takes
the
the
fall.
fall. And they're like, "This lady is crazy. We're gonna put her in four padded walls."
Yeah, this was a big turning point for me in the show where I was like, okay, yeah, they are institutionalizing this character. This
Oh,
is
for sure.
getting a little dark, right?
Yeah, and that's when Brett arrives and finds the eyeball that he was missing on the
Hmm.
keychain, and he promises to put his friend back together. That's what it is.
Yeah. And now we head into, so this would be like the midway point, right? Well, this is 4 episodes, and we're getting to
5.
the midway point.
This is 5. Yeah.
So reader beware. So
Yep.
this is really Margot's episode, right? Because we talked about her being the investigator, right? She's
Mhm.
at this point, she's putting the pieces together, and she comes across, or ends up in her bag. I forget. How does she get the journal again?
Oh, she
Brat.
gets yeah. Brack gives it to her.
Brat literally gives it to her. She's like, "Oh, this
Le-
is
Legit hands it to her, just nonchalant.
yeah." So
Like,
this is
here
the
you
first
go.
thing that didn't come from Halloween,
Yeah, this is the only thing that did not come from the residence.
from the residents.
Well, I mean,
Uh,
it came. I think it came from the residence. It's
they
just
didn't take it. They
Brat.
weren't. She
Yeah,
didn't take it that night.
yeah. Brat gave it to her, and
Yeah,
in the cafeteria,
and
just
right there in the cafeteria.
in the open, just like here you go. Good luck.
I mean, this was bold, right? Because I think Brad's really at this point is realizing, okay, yeah, these kids are standing in the way. Let's really fan the flames here and like
Yeah,
just
exactly.
get this train where it's got to go.
Yep.
So then Margot opens up this journal, and I think the first experience is in the hallway or in the caf.
Um, no, I think she went to a separate room
The
because I think
photo
she was.
room?
Yeah, I think she was in the. Is she in the photo room?
Because the first part was an accident.
Yeah, because that's when she was introduced to when Harold was um, coming to the school
Hmm.
and met her mom. Or no, the library. That's where it was in the library
They were
because
in the
remember
library.
the
She opens
first
it up.
the first flash is her mom in the library talking to the friends across the way.
Gotcha.
So that was the first. So she was in the library when all the visions started because then she moved to the auditorium.
Right, because then she kind of like immediately pieced it together. Was like, okay, I need to be in the room where the page is
Yep.
illustrating,
And then you could see everything that's been going on.
and then you could play the flashback.
Yep.
Um, I love this as a tool to kind of
Oh yeah.
narratively tell the flashbacks through this story, like you're reading a book.
Yeah, that's basically, and I like the way they did that. So it's not every episode they're doing all these flashbacks. Like this one
Hmm.
was a perfect vessel to get to
Yeah,
each story and really give you the whole backstory. Like you would get the little stuff here and there, but this one just, all right, the parents, here they all are. I see them as younglings. Like it's time to show us what happened
yeah.
so we can see.
And this had classic Goosebumps vibes because it was not in the '90s, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Because they were in high school in the '90s, so you had the grunge look, the plaid, the
Yep.
right. So we get Harold's flashback here of him coming to school, sort of this timid kid,
Brand new.
um, hmm?
Brand new. Just
brand new,
quiet, quiet.
and he's just trying to fit in with this group, this group of the
Mhm.
parents, right? Right. So we
Well,
have
he
that
started with Sarah
story with Sarah,
because remember he wanted to go to the photo club
the photo club.
and Sarah was part of it. So he started entering that friend group with just Sarah
Hmm.
because he had such an attachment to Sarah. Sarah like treated him well and treated him like a normal human being, which was obviously different to him. So he started opening up more, and I think that's the only way he actually got into that friend group was because Sarah was part of it, and he was already
Yeah.
friends with Sarah. Um, so that was a good build up because you see that okay, Harold was a good person. Like he was a normal person at one point and just had that love interest. And then you just see everything deteriorate from there down, and it
Mhm.
changes everything.
Well, that's the thing. So we get the bit in the library, we get
Yep.
the bit in the photo lab,
Yep.
and then the theater.
Yes. The theater, which I don't think the theater shows that and also what happens at the house, I'm pretty sure, is how that went.
It jumps to the house.
I think you see just the end of it. I think it cuts it right at the almost towards the end of the episode because they end up at the house anyway because of uh, Brat. He invites
Mhm.
them over. So I think you see just that ending part of them running out of the house with the flames, but that's
Right.
they don't tell you
Well,
anything
well,
else.
Mario gets trapped in the book,
Yeah, yeah, she gets stuck.
but in the
She's
theater
yeah,
is where
she
she gets
cannot get out.
trapped by
Harold.
Harold.
Yeah, she can't get out.
I was cracking up when they were moving her body through the school.
It was great.
I thought that was there was like on a dolly or whatever.
Yeah, they were just moving her around, just
That
a
was
body.
hysterical.
Yeah,
Yeah, one of the best comedic moments of the show.
yeah. That they had so many funny things. It's just like the little one timers is what it was.
Yeah, yeah. But they find out that they have to go to the Biddle house,
Yep.
where they sit down and they're treated to a tale from Brat. Although, is this where Brat reveals?
Not yet.
Not yet.
So
Okay.
Brat
Brat said, "I'm
invites
going to tell you
them
a
in
story."
because they ended up at the house because that's kind of where that vision took place of you see them run out
Hmm.
and the fires, but you never find out what actually happened yet.
Right.
And Brat's like, "Well, if you want to know, come on in. I'm going to show you down, and we're going to have like a story time, basically." And that's how that episode ends: is them starting the reading of the book and
Yeah.
figuring out what actually happened.
Which dives us into our flashback episode, Night of the Living Dummy,
Yep,
right, where we are introduced to
everything.
Slappy. Everything.
Everything. We're introduced to everything in this one.
So we have Ephraim Biddle, so the Biddle ancestor, right, who is a struggling magician
Yep.
who is not selling out shows at all,
Yep.
barely making ends meet, has a wife and a child,
Hmm.
right, is spending
Is
his
spending.
earnings,
Yeah.
right. He goes into the magic shop, and I think so he can't afford any of the expensive tricks,
Nope. He can't afford anything.
anything, but he eyes Slappy.
Just the suitcase. He
Oh,
doesn't know
just a
what's in it.
suitcase.
It was just the suitcase he saw.
Okay, but he buys it
Yep.
and brings the suitcase home, and his wife's like, all right, did you make any money? Did we have
Yeah.
dinner? What's going on? He's like, I got something better.
This is what I got. Here's a suitcase with a puppet.
Yeah, this is gonna make us millions or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, he was right.
I mean, yeah, he wasn't wrong. He did
So
make
it opens
millions.
up,
Yeah.
and I love how he's like complete. And I love that Slappy didn't reveal himself yet. Like, it was really crazy how like Slappy revealed himself in the middle of the act, right?
Yeah.
So Slappy's out there on his lap. He's totally bombing the ventriloquism act, and then Slappy jumps in and saves him,
Slappy takes over.
which is so manipulative
Oh, that's all Slappy is.
because it's like, I'm going to help you when you're completely low and embarrassed to make you feel like you need me.
Yep.
It's
That's
so
how
good.
he is. And I mean, it worked
Yeah.
because Ephraim literally used him for everything. Because remember, the guy came in and he was like, "Hey, like maybe we should bring on like a second act with it," because and he's like, "Well, why do I need a second act? Like all
Mhm.
they need is just me and Slappy kind of deal." And that's when you knew Slappy was fully in that man's head because he decided that's all he's going to need in life is just him and that puppet. He
Yeah.
doesn't need any opening acts, anything like
Nope.
that. It's just that.
And Slappy brings him success for decades.
Yeah, he makes.
You
I
know,
mean, look at that house.
with
That
that
house was
house.
huge. That house was gorgeous.
Well, what's interesting, right? So it costs him his marriage, his child.
Oh yeah.
He's successful well into like the 60s or 70s or whatever it was.
Mhm.
He gets this house. But what's interesting is towards the end, it's like people are clearly, the whole vaudeville ventriloquism act is sort of very passe at this point, right? People
Yep.
want more.
Yep.
and he's not willing to share the stage.
Nope. He just wants that, and I think that's a Slappy decision. I don't think that was
That is
his
100%
decision.
the Slappy
That was
decision.
a Slappy decision.
Slappy
Um,
wants the spotlight.
yeah, because then that's when he goes into the coffin and starts reading the spells, and
Hmm.
he's getting crazy. I think he just wanted any. It's one of those things of just relying on money and wanting to do anything you can to be at the top.
Right.
That's what he did.
So he sort of lives out the rest of his life in this house,
Yep.
right? Put Slappy in the wall.
Puts him right in the wall, suitcase and all.
Does a
If
little Casa of Amontillado with Slappy.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what he does. Hides him in the wall because he knows that Slappy is causing so many issues.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah,
what it was.
yeah. And then
Then you
is
go
this
to
where we
Harold.
get? Hmm?
You go to Harold.
And then
Harold.
yeah, then we flash forward to Harold, who's moving in with his parents. Harold's got his whole past trauma, his history of bullying. This poor kid is just like fresh
He's
start.
struggling.
His parents want him to be happy, but it's like I always feel bad. I feel like I always sort of relate. It's sort of like he's a weird kid. He's into
Yeah,
weird things,
he
and you're
likes
like,
his worms.
he's got
Likes
his
his random
worms,
mask.
and the mom's like, maybe we could get a puppy,
Yeah, let's just get him a puppy. And
you
when
know?
she said that, I was like, "Yep," because puppies fix everything.
Yeah.
Because they
Or like
fix.
instead of like bracing your kid's weirdness and being like, why don't you just go make other weird friends, right? They're just like sort of like, you should assimilate
Yeah,
and
that's what
totally.
they wanted, and instead he decided to find that suitcase.
Hmm. Well,
And
he finds the suitcase,
yep,
and well, before that, right? So we know that he's making connections with people,
yep.
right? And he joins like the photo club. We know all that.
Him and
Um,
Sarah are flirting and doing all that while they're
yeah,
taking the photos.
but there's an upcoming talent show, and he finds the doll.
Yep.
And well, this is actually before he brings Slappy because Slappy tears people to shreds,
Yeah,
right?
because that's during the talent show.
That's during the talent show.
He is
But he gets
destroying
popular
them.
with Slappy before that because he gets in trouble with the.
Yeah, I forgot where that actually started because I think he only got in trouble. I don't know if he got in trouble or it was just kind of making people laugh. It wasn't as bad as the talent show because the
Right.
parents try were like, "Hey, why don't you leave Slappy home? Like, don't take him to school.
Yeah.
This is weird. Don't do that."
Hmm. And then, well,
um,
Nora starts to know. Is it Nora that starts to notice like Slappy's evil at this point?
yes, well, because Nora catches
Catches him
Slappy
talking.
talking to
Yeah.
him in the room, and she went over to Sarah and she's like, "He's talking like it's," and they're like, "Yeah, that's Harold doing it," and she's like, "No, no, he was actually doing it."
Yeah. So very similar to Slappy, where with Ephraim, Slappy very much isolated Ephraim from his family because of the success, right? But
Yep.
getting into his ego, very much here, he's doing the same thing with Harold.
Yeah.
In Harold getting isolated, right, either from his parents or ultimately his friends.
Yep.
Um, and then we have like the talent show where he completely roasts
Yeah.
everybody and gets
He
into trouble.
destroyed them. Destroyed them. They had no chance. They had no chance.
No. Completely roasts everybody, and then he's going to get suspended or whatever.
Yeah, because he was also saying stuff that Sarah told him secretly.
Right, he was
Because
spilling
that was
everything.
that's when he basically ruined the only relationship he had
Yeah,
with Sarah was because Sarah had told him stuff in secrecy, but Slappy didn't care. Slappy
mm,
just wanted to destroy them in the middle of this talent show. So you
interesting.
basically ended up ruining your own friendship and love interest that you had
Hmm.
because of Slappy.
Well, that's how you
And
manipulate someone, right? That's very
yeah,
like cult-like mentality, right? It's like you isolate someone from their supports,
yeah,
right? Um, it's even deeper than I thought it was. I'm
yeah. I
thinking,
know. That's
I'm like,
watching stuff like this as an adult hit difference.
yeah.
So we know that it's the deeper stuff.
But like, yeah, and then I know so he ends up home and like so he uses this spell
Yep,
and turns his parents into puppets.
just like that. Kills his parents just like that.
Kills his parents. And then they plan the group plans to break in. This is sort of when we get the full explanation of they plan
of
to
exactly what happened. They just
break
want to
in, get
steal.
Slappy.
They just want to steal Slappy. That is the whole point behind the flashback. Is they just want to steal Slappy because Slappy is obviously changing Harold,
Yeah.
which you could tell was a decision they made because they did see something in Harold. Sarah
Mhm.
did like Harold, did like the friendship that was pulling, but knew that this doll was like this puppet was what was causing
Right.
everything. So that
Slappy
was their whole
entered,
plan. Yep,
Harold changed.
that's all they wanted was to just break in and steal Slappy, and it went downhill.
And then in that chaos, right, we get
Yeah,
this yeah, accidental murder.
yeah. But I don't think they even fully touch how it exactly happened because I think it goes into the next episode in one of the flashbacks as well.
I think so. Well, we
But
we reveal at the end of this episode, right, as we sort of pan out back to the group, Brat reveals that he knows all of this. They're like, "How do you know all this?" And he's like, "Well, because I am Harold."
and it was because they made him upset because they were like, "Oh, so it was an accident. Like our parents did nothing. Like they did
Mhm.
nothing wrong. They were trying to help him." And that's when Brat, you could see, it was getting so angry because he was like, "No, like they're murderers. That's what
They
it
are
is."
murderers.
And yeah, they are murderers. And then that's when they're like, "How do you know all this?" And he's like, "Well," and then he basically changes right into Harold. He's like, "Because I
Mhm.
am Harold." And that's when they realize that they're all still stuck in this scrapbook.
I think that's where we get the shot where they all have the black eyes on the couch, right?
Yep,
They're all
because
like,
right at the end where they're all, yeah, they were just sitting there because that's when the audience is told and you realize that they're still in this scrapbook
and
and they can't get out right now.
I love that shot of all of them on the couch. I remember that as I was waiting for that. I remember that being a promotional picture, like a still from the episode, or just still from the show. That was being
Yeah,
like it was put in like one of the articles or something.
yeah,
I was like, "Ooh, where's that?" It was pretty creepy, you know.
yeah, but I think they did a good job for, I mean, I love Night of the Living Dummy. It's one of my favorites. And the episodes that they did with friggin' Anakin Skywalker himself just hanging out as a child, like,
You know,
it's
I
just the
had
little stuff.
I was doing my research. I didn't get to rewatch old episodes before this, but I was just sort of doing a rewatch. I didn't realize they never actually adapted the original book,
No, they didn't, they only have, 2 and 3.
which is
Or it's
wild.
actually, I think it's just, if I remember correctly, I think it's 3, part 1 and part 2.
Hmm.
They never actually based it off of the, first book, and I think the only thing I just actually tweeted about it the other day was just the only thing I hated about, like, this show is I hated how much they changed Slappy's look,
Oh,
because I remember watching this show, and that was the most terrifying puppet I've ever seen.
yeah.
That used to get that was my nightmare. Like, you had the Nightmare for the Mask, Slappy was my nightmare. It was his thick, like, blonde eyebrows, and I
Yeah.
remember it, and they did change it a little bit. It's still creepy, but not as much as the
It's creepy in
original.
like the playful, innocent way, right? It's
Yeah.
creepy in the way that like a good guy doll is creepy,
Oh, absolutely.
right? Where like if you just stare at it long enough, you're like, ooh. Like,
That's how the original Goose, like, and I think they just did such a great job with the puppet to
mhm.
just move its eyebrows to make those all the facial expressions, and that one used to truly terrify me. So then, like, seeing this one, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't the original.
No, but the voice I did. I mean, the voice was different, but I did like the voice acting for this
Oh,
stuff.
absolutely. I
You know?
thought it was really good. It fit perfect timing, everything like
Yeah,
that. It had that, like, deeper, darker type, like, every time you heard him talk, you knew there was something darker inside of that
yeah, like
puppet.
playful, menacing. But I agree on the look. Not the
Yeah.
doll itself wasn't quite
It
nightmare
wasn't just,
inducing.
yeah, it wasn't nightmare inducing.
But our next episode takes fully within the scrapbook. So this
Yep.
scrapbook gets a lot of play. This scrapbook gets a whole arc. Um, so and give yourself. Well, first I want to just shout out to the titles. I didn't mention it. With Reader Beware was a phrase for the Goosebumps series.
Yes.
Reader Beware, you're in for a scare.
Yeah, Reader Bewares were, I remember reading those because what I loved about those books is that they were, you choose your own fate.
Hmm.
That's how R.L. Stein wanted it to go. I think I forgot how many he made, but it was from like 1995 to like 2000. And I mean, you could, it's your book. So whatever route you took the first time, you just go back to the next and go the other route.
You're like, I didn't
And
like this. Going
yeah,
back.
it reminds me of when they did the Black Mirror like interactive on Netflix.
Bandersnatch was so
Yeah, Bandersnatch when you just choosing your own fate. And it was just such a fun thing to do, especially as a kid. When like back in the day, like you
yeah.
liked reading stuff like that because
That
you're
was
like,
our
well,
OG Netflix
I'm gonna choose the
interaction.
good one, and then like you'll screw one up, and then you're like, okay, next time around I'll choose the better one.
Yeah, so good. But yeah, so then you give yourself goosebumps, right? Which is another sort of, it wasn't a title of a book, but it was sort of part of the language that was used within the
Yeah.
series, right? Like a
Yep.
catchphrase and
Yeah. Exactly.
yeah, but they're in it and they find out that yeah, they can't get out. They're stuck in the scrapbook, and but they find that Biddle, and yeah, Biddle or Brat, sorry, Brat is in there with them.
Yeah, and they find out first that the only reason why they're in there is because Harold drew them into the scrap.
How to draw them into that? Yes,
So and then yeah, that's when they're all trying to get out, and Brat pops up. He's like, "Hey guys,"
and they're all
Justin
like
Long being
ready to
so
beat him.
innocent. He's like, "Oh, no, 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 it's not me." He's so innocent in that scene. He's like, "Hey guys," and
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
just all stuck in this house in this scrapbook.
Oh man. So yeah, they're all trying to figure out a way to get out.
Yeah.
Um, and I think I don't remember. Does Brat snap out before they find the jump to the school page?
Yes, because that's when because I think he gets hit by one of them, or
Hmm.
he does something, and that's when he pops back into his body for like a hot second.
Yeah.
And he came back and he was like, "Wait a second," like, and he's trying to tell the kids like, "Hey, when I hit
Yeah.
myself, I could stay in my body for a little bit, and I take over for Harold, and I get my body back." So
Yeah.
then that's when they're like, and then Isaiah punches him to try to get it because that's the same time that I think that was the episode that started with the principal addressing about Brat's attitude, wanting a sick day, and
Oh, right. Because yeah, he has not been at
because
work.
he's literally Harold. I
Yeah.
mean, if I was Harold, I wouldn't want to work either, because that's when he decides that he's gonna go go really look for the rest of Slappy.
Hmm.
Go
And
find
now,
him.
is when he loses control of his body in the school, or that was when he was first possessed?
That was when he was first possessed, because that
Right.
was
So that
in
was
the
funny too.
bathroom, I think. Yeah.
Justin gets a lot of physical comedy
Oh yeah.
in this season.
He's just this man in horror, anything is hilarious. Like we all know how his luck is, and them just doing it this way, I was like, just his luck. Like I just want one single horror movie where Justin Long is the hero and it's like top notch survives. But
Yeah.
I think every horror creator is just like, nah, like this guy's a perfect person to destroy and like possess. Like he's cool with it.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
He's never the hero. Never the
It's a
hero.
doofy charm, you know?
Yeah.
Kind of in the way it's like if you take like Bruce Campbell and you take the heroics out of him, it's just the slapstick goofiness,
Yeah. That's exactly
you
how it is.
know? But yeah, this back and forth comedy of like him getting hit back into his body, out of his body, right? So it becomes this tug of war between him and Biddle.
Yeah.
While Biddle's driving a car.
Yeah, because they're he was going up to that mountain cabin
Mhm. Well,
because
he's trailing Nora, right?
well, yeah, because Nora got out of the psych hospital.
Mhm.
They find out that she was never taking her meds, that she was being prescribed, that Victoria tried to give her because she didn't want to take the meds, but
Yeah.
Victoria was giving it to her because she was afraid she was going to open her mouth about something she shouldn't be.
Mhm.
And that's when we come to find out that the mountain cabin is where they were keeping Slappy, all the pieces of Slappy when the parents did that.
Yeah.
So once Harold finds that out, he is now driving as Mr. Brat up into the snowstorm, and he's trying to get Slappy, and then it becomes just a chaotic fight for whose body it's going to be between
Yeah.
him and Mr. Brat, because you got Mr. Brat who's smacking himself inside the scrapbook to get back through, having Isaiah punch him in the face, and they're just going back and forth on who's going to actually have the body, which
No,
is
yeah.
such a comedic relief. I
Oh,
loved it.
yeah. While the kids are trying to get out of the scrapbook, and I love when the scrapbook falls into the puddle,
Oh yeah,
right? And then just the water effect of like the house melting away and the
I'm
water
just like
coming down.
disintegrating. Yeah,
Just oh, that was so good. And so I know they look through the one door and they can see sort of the other platform or like the other
yep,
space. Right? I think Margot's the one that goes over.
Yeah, I think it was Margot.
or Isabel, maybe Margot,
One of those 2.
goes over, and it turns out they go into another page.
Yep.
And so as she's there, did she see something? Did she see something play out while she's there?
Yeah, well, because that was when she, finds out exactly how Harold died,
Mhm.
because Harold had her in the basement with the candle, and
Mhm.
they had banged on the door, and she had fallen back, and that just foreshadowed exactly what happened
Okay.
to the accidental death, was when
Gotcha.
Harold was in the basement, they were trying to get him out of the basement to grab Slappy. They hit the door, he rolled down the stairs, and the candle ended up burning up, and that's how you found out that it
That's
was
how
an
that
accident.
then
But
then she ends up in the hallway? At the school hallway?
yes, because I
Right?
think that's when Harold's at the end of it.
Right. Because then I know they pull her up.
Yeah, they
Right.
pull her out.
But yeah, but then they figure out they have to write their way out of it.
Yep, they have to write him out. So they want to keep Brat in the body as long as they can, so that he can write them out.
Mhm.
But Harold is strong. The two of them are just battling, and they just can't seem to do it. And then that police officer gave away where Nora was, because remember he went there and
Oh,
to
right,
check
right.
on her, and then he drove down, pulled him over, was like, "Oh yeah, I just met up with her that much long ago." And I was like, "Damn it! If you didn't open your mouth, Harold would have never found Nora.
Exactly.
You did this."
Oh, man. But then now, because remind me now, because Emma, you did a rewatch. Now, was it Margot that drew them out of it?
I Yes, I believe it was Margot, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly, because Brat couldn't stay in long enough to
Mhm. And
do
I love this. So
anything.
this is sort of the first one, out of the 5 of them who sort of gets, like, a multi-part like, her adaptation or her thing being the scrapbook gets this, like, multi-episode arc.
Yeah, she
Oh
ends up becoming like the top tier character.
oh, yeah.
Like you would think like Isaiah at the beginning, but like she ended up becoming the top notch. Like her and Nora, between the two of
Yeah,
them,
because they get
top
crap
notch
done.
character. Yeah, they're like the best ones.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, then that sort of, because then the chase between Nora and Biddle kind of continues
Yep.
right into the next episode. You can't scare me. When Nora's going up into the woods, and I love the moment where the cop suspects her of murder when he sees the body in the bag.
Yep.
I'm just like, nope, nope, it's just a doll. I
Just a doll, just a puppet, just a
swear it's just
puppet.
a puppet. That was funny. I vaguely remember this. I don't remember if it was this episode, but this was I don't know if it was this episode or not, but there was a reference that I said. Remember, they mentioned like something that was very dirty. I almost feel like I remember there's being snow in the background, but they made an edging joke.
Oh wait, I think I know which one you're talking about. I think it was this
I
episode
think
because
it
I
was.
think
I
it's
was like,
when they're in the woods.
they were in the. I'm like, they said that on this show. I was so shocked.
They just didn't care. They just made this and just
I
hoped for
was
the
like,
best.
what? So
Yeah.
anyway, I was like, wild. Anyway, but I think it was this episode. That's why I
But
was
I'm
like,
trying to remember now because I think in this episode they were still in the scrapbook for a little bit. Because
was it? Did they get out in this
I
one?
think they got out in this one because this is when they meet up with Harold's parents as puppets.
Oh,
And
right. They
that's how
tell
they
her.
find out that he had killed his I mean, they knew that he killed his parents, but
Hmm.
this is when they actually meet them, and they were the ones because they used it to their advantage at the end of this episode
Yes.
to get out of everything and to
Hmm.
make Harold go bye-bye,
Yeah.
basically.
I mean, we get this whole chase scene in the snow, which was really fun and like intense.
Yeah.
The kids, they drive up, they catch up to them. So
Mhm.
it sort of becomes this whole show. The parents are going up. This is sort of like this almost felt like a season finale
Yeah.
because like
It did feel like this show was gonna end right here.
yeah,
And I obviously, if they did, I would have been okay with it and waited for season 2 for the next couple episodes, but,
hmm I
like,
was
it
happy
was a
for
good end.
more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, okay, so the rest of it was gravy, but like I felt like this thematically, all the storylines were coming together.
Mhm.
They confronted Harold. They sort of used the parents' words against it. They called him, oh my, Hair Bear,
Care Bear, yep,
Hair
that's what it
Bear. And
was.
he was like, "How'd you know?" or whatever. So we met your parents, and so was it who throws Slappy over?
Well, Isaiah falls over,
Isaiah falls over.
and he's on the edge, and that's when
Hmm.
Harold's telling him that he's gonna finish him and be
Yeah,
done, And I think Slappy was already I think Isaiah did throw him over, but then I think he was sliding down or got pushed over, I can't remember. And that's when the parents all showed up, and that's when they all used it to their advantage to start apologizing to Harold and being like, "This is not how what we
Mhm.
wanted. Like, you are so loved, like you are our friend, and like
Yeah.
you need to go back. Your parents miss you. They want you. Basically, they want you in the afterlife. Like you need to just do it. Like stop haunting our children. We apologize for everything that happened."
Yeah. This isn't a knock on the show, but this was very much giving me Thackeray Binks at the end of Hocus Pocus.
Absolutely, absolutely. I see that.
That's sort of like spirit crossing over kind of
Yeah,
moment.
and that's exactly how it was because then once they finally get through to him, that's when Harold rescues Isaiah, make sure he
Mhm,
doesn't fall off the cliff, and they it kind of just ends like that. He walks off with his parents, and
mhm.
they're good to go, and then that's when you're like, all right, like the end of the show is good, and then pans to Slappy at the bottom and opens his eyes, and you're like, well, guess we're not done.
Nope, we're not, because then we hop right into Night of the Living Dummy 2.
Yep.
I really enjoyed this one, right? So we get Brat's backstory here, right? Where he's this like ne'er-do-well like English teacher who's just like messing up at work, teaching English or writing in a math class.
Yep, with
Like
his little dog Fifi running around.
Fifi, well, he's late on his rent,
Yep.
right? And while his like landlord's like, "Give me my money," Fifi gets hit by a car.
Him lighting the little candles in front of Fifi's photo killed
Fifi's
me.
memorial in the
Oh
house.
my god.
Like, it almost was like it looked like one of those, like, little ancestor things that people have in their houses sometimes,
Yeah,
right? Like,
and Fifi's just that typical, like, innocent, yappy, little tiny dog with the little bow in her
little poodle, right? It was like a poodle?
For sure, Justin Long's type
Yeah.
of dog.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Like
Depends on
Mr.
just
Bratz.
character that he's playing for
Oh,
sure,
yeah,
but, like,
Mr. Bratz dog, for sure.
definitely. Um, and then and then he finds out that he inherited this house.
Yep,
So when he's, like, down on his luck, he's, like, losing his job, can't pay rent, dog's dead,
yep.
he gets this house. And then we sort of go into uh from there, right? Do they show him getting possessed again?
No, I think that's the, fast forward now where he's, writing the book.
Then he's writing the book, sort of the
Yeah, he's
sequel,
yeah,
right?
he's,
Or he's writing the book. They want a better ending,
they want a better ending, that's all they want, and
which is
that's
very
when
funny. How like we get an episode that very much feels like a finale, and then they're literally telling us we didn't like that
yeah,
ending.
we need a better one.
We need a better ending. Let's amp this up. So I think where it could have been fine ending there, I sort of like this very meta, almost Scream like take.
Yeah,
The way that they went with this, like we that was too nicey nice. Let's
yeah,
go bigger.
and they gave a lot of information in these next 2 episodes, like, this is the first kinda show that I've watched that gives you so much information that's important to it, but once again, not too much information that it's overwhelming.
No, right? Because then we get um sort of Slappy's backstory. Although he gets the idea of like, okay, I'm running out of ideas. I don't know what to do. Then he gets the bright idea. Let's just go get Slappy.
I'm gonna use
And
Slappy, and
Slappy will
then
tell me what to write.
yep, and Slappy brought him to Candu's coffin, and he was like, "I promise to give you the best ending."
Hmm. And then
And
so we get Kandu's backstory. So Kandu actually is Slappy,
yeah,
right? So he's in the war. We don't get too much of
well,
the
that's
war.
in the next episode. So that's
So
in the
so
last
does
episode.
he end up?
So this one ends with
Mhm.
him coming out into while they're in the house. He comes out of
Oh,
Slappy, and that's when you know, as the audience, that Slappy had a human possession inside of him the whole
gotcha.
time.
Okay, you're right.
Because then, yeah, then they put all that information in the start of the next episode. It starts off with the war.
And then it starts off with okay. So I'm
Yeah.
trying. How else? What else? So we have Brat's backstory. He gets Slappy.
And then it just kind of goes to just the kids in the future because then you have
Oh, they're in Seattle.
yeah, they were in Seattle. You have Margot and Lucas on Margot and Lucas were together for a little bit, and then she professed her feelings to Isaiah. Isaiah talked to
Mhm.
her, and that was that weird love triangle. I don't even count Ashley in that love triangle. It was just the Margot, Lucas, and Isaiah love triangle. You
That's
didn't
right.
know
It
who was
kind of was
the
a square, but not really because everyone forgot about Ash.
yeah, I feel bad, Ashley was
Oh.
great. She was dressed as Kill Bill for that Halloween party.
Yeah.
I can't be mad,
But
but
you know what though? Good for her. She dodged a bullet because she didn't get
yep.
involved in all this bullshit.
Yeah, she literally just if you think about it, she just disappeared. You
Just
never
like
really saw her again.
she had to deal with
They broke up and then they like wrote her out of the whole entire show. She
that
was
was
probably
it.
not even extra. They're like, "Here you go. Thanks for doing like 4 episodes with us. Bye."
You know what? She didn't have to deal with Slappy, no scrapbook,
You don't have to-
worms.
Your
She
parents
avoided
getting
all
turned
of
into puppets. You didn't have to deal with any of that.
that.
You lived
God.
your best life. Yeah, so that's how
Um,
this the next episode started. But yeah, the that ninth episode just kind of shows the past, and
right. It was
it
very
really
bridge.
concentrates on Slappy coming back.
Right. So
And
it very much was like a bridge, sort of like, oh, now we're really ramping up, and there's going to be a final showdown.
yeah,
Which brings us into the other one I was really excited as far as an adaptation goes, but it was not what I remember the show doing. So, welcome to Horrorland. And I remember the episode being like a carnival of monsters, right?
yeah, that's exactly how the show was, and I think that's kind. I feel like that's what they were trying to do
A
for
carnival of
the
puppets.
yeah, and I think that's where they were going with it. Is
Right,
more
right.
the puppet aspect, but I could see why they named it that because it is the carnival of monsters.
True.
You do have this carnival slash sacrifice of
Yeah.
all these puppets, but it is definitely different a little bit from
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I sort of had to like take my expectations out of it because I remember it being very goofy and fun. I remember like the family being brought up to do like a little game show thing.
yeah,
Like it was very weird.
yeah,
So maybe I'm happy they kind of went this way because I don't know how you would necessarily have done that per se.
yeah, and I can't really think of any kind of other Goosebumps that would be a good ending to match what they
Right.
were trying to do.
So I think right. I think the way they adapted this to fit the story that they were telling, I think that's perfect. But right, so you're right. So this starts off with Kandu. He's fighting in the war.
Yep.
This is like the late 1800s. He's like in Europe.
Yeah, he was
I
somewhere.
don't know what war this was.
Yeah, I don't think they even tell you.
I
They just
really don't know what was happening at this. This was not any of the world wars. This was something I don't.
it it was weird. I don't know what I expected, but I didn't expect this episode to just start in the war, and you're like, "Is this where Kandu came from?" Like, you're
Yeah,
like,
I mean, it was cool. I mean, like,
"Yeah, it worked out. It worked in their favor."
yeah. So
It's
Kandu
just
gets shot on the field,
yep, he gets shot.
and he ends up in this like tomb,
This just mysterious cave out of
mysterious
nowhere
cave.
with like
Um,
markings on the walls, just like what?
Writings on the wall, markings. I think he lights sort of. It's like one of those things where you light it, and like I love that sort of like where it lights up sort of the
It lights up
stone
everything.
across the
Yeah,
whole thing. And then he reads because of course you see something, you see strange markings. Yeah, immediately got to read it.
yep, of course. In this
Uh,
mysterious cave in the middle of a war. Yep, seemed legit.
you just read this language I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, it's like the start of every Evil Dead movie, or like
Yep. That's exactly how Evil Dead happens.
but you know what? He was dying anyway, so I guess whatever
Yep.
was gonna happen,
And it healed him, so it
and
healed
it
him.
healed him.
That's all that matter.
Yeah, it imbued him with whatever the magic, it healed him, and then he moves on,
Yep.
right? And then we sort of flash forward to this. Then he comes across the carnival, right?
The dying carnival.
The dying
The
carnival with
dying carnival.
Mayor Mar.
Yeah, I think that's how you say it.
Mar, I think it's Mar. Mar is sort of this, right? He's this puppeteer, like running the carnival,
Yep.
and he says, "I can help you make the greatest carnival of all time, and you're going to be super successful." He's like promising him all this stuff, and then we see. I think we. This is where we first see Slappy on the table,
Well, I don't know if we see Slappy.
or
We
a,
see like
it's like a version of it. It's like
it's like
Slappy 1.0.
it's a terrible mold of it. It's
Yeah.
basically a you have the head, you have it carved, but there are no eyes, nothing like that, because that's the first time you see Kandu with his type of magic sorcery, because that's when he was like, "Oh, like I don't believe you," and that's when he lifts up the puppet, and it
Mhm.
does talk like Slappy, but you don't have the full facial thing to prove
Yeah.
that it's Slappy.
Not
And
quite yet.
yeah, and that's all he says is like, "I will give you the best carnival ever. You just have to make me a puppet."
Mhm.
That's all he wanted.
Yeah. So, and sort of as it is like, they're bringing in the crowds, um, but then Can Do, right? I forget how far do they have successful shows, and then
Yeah,
Can Do.
yeah, I think they have successful shows, and then that one show is that what they flash to is
Mhm.
when he's on stage and Mara comes up and they're all puppets, and he
And
was
they're all
like,
puppets.
"You're turning them all to puppets?" He was like, what is going on?"
Mhm. Like, they're all the puppets, he's gonna be the puppet master.
And that was already after I think he gave him Slappy.
He
I
already gave
think
him Slappy.
he already had made Slappy and gave it to him.
And
So
then Mar realizes, "Oh, man, like, this guy's
this
dangerous."
guy's crazy
So he figures out which spell he used,
to
right?
put
And then he
Candu
uses it against him to trap him in.
into
Like,
Slappy and close the suitcase, lock it up. That
that's
was
it.
his whole plan.
And then yeah, and then we flash forward right now, we know that was Kandu.
Mhm.
And then yeah, and then Kandu's plan is ultimately to create this, I guess. So yeah, so we find out about this tower, this ritual.
It reminded me of the Wicker Man.
Yeah, yeah.
The burning. That's exactly what that looked like, almost. Minus like the actual shape. That's all I could think of when I was watching that.
Hmm. Yeah, and then so we find out. I think I forget. I don't know. Before we find out the lore, I guess we could talk about it out of order if it is a little bit, because it is very lore heavy. So we find out that really Kandu's plot is to do this burning ritual that's going to unleash the horrors upon the
Yep.
world, right?
Yep.
So
He needs
essentially, he's going.
1,000 people. 1,000.
You got to burn 1,000 people,
Yep. That
the
are
whole
puppets.
town.
They have to be puppets at that time, I think.
You have to be
Or
a
unless
puppet,
if he was just using that to
right?
secure those 1,000 people.
Well, he was like, "I'll turn you into a puppet. That way, you're going to go over to,
Yeah.
you know,
You're gonna do what I want you to do.
yeah, and then you go and you're going to burn on this tower, and then we're going to unleash horror
Yep.
on the world, right?" So, what a cool way of, so really, essentially, this magic that was in the tomb this is what unleashes monsters into the
Yep.
world, ghosts and all the stuff, right? So, this is kind of the source of all the supernatural stuff within the Goosebumps world,
Yep.
which is so cool.
I loved it. I loved it.
What a cool way to tie it all together.
Yeah. They did a great job at it.
Yeah, and really sort of, I mean, explaining all the supernatural like objects in the house, sort of coming from Kandu's magic.
Yeah, because wasn't this the same episode? I think it's got to be the same episode when all that weird stuff was happening. Um,
So when the
when
kids
the
were,
parents, yeah, when the
well,
parents,
yeah,
because that's when they knew that something was going on because you had Margot's parents that are nonchalantly like back together. You
oh yeah,
have Lucas and Nora, and dad comes back and he was actually just going to jail. But then you see that his dad turns into Kandu, turns him into a puppet. I think that might have been at the end of episode 9 is when that happened because then
mhm,
this one started with Margot's parents being all lovey-dovey again, nonchalant, everything's okay. And then you could tell that Margot picked up what was going on. Isabella had picked up what was going on. And that's when they go and they rescue Isaiah to make sure that he doesn't turn into a puppet. And they take James out of the scenario too.
right.
And that's when they know something's going on and they need to figure out what's going on and solve it. Because obviously Kandu's after them.
And so they all end up at the carnival,
Yep.
right?
Kandu takes them, snatches
Kandu
them up.
takes them. Well, they find Brat working for him.
Yep, they see Brad because he's like, "Dad, put me down," and he's like, "He's not gonna he's not listening to you."
No. And they're like, "What are you doing?" Right? He's like, "You're," and they find out that he's writing the book
Yep,
about everything. That he sort of made this deal with Slappy. And then so they find that's where they find out the whole plan. I think
yep,
Brad is the one that fills them in on it.
yep. He tells them everything.
I love the nod of Fifi coming back to life. I think that was in the last episode, but
Yeah, I think it was like right at the
zombie
end.
Fifi's back in this one, right?
Fifi with the eyes. It just watching that just reminded me about the Goosebumps intro every
Well,
time.
that's the retriever.
The
Yeah.
retriever with the eyes. It was great.
Oh,
I wish they used the retriever and not Fifi with a little bow in her
I
hair.
know. I know. I think.
But it was such a good nod to it because like
Yeah.
it's such a classic. Like I'm really hoping. I just talked about somebody like I talked about it on Twitter with somebody yesterday because they're like, I really hate that they didn't use the Goosebumps theme, and
It is in there, actually.
I was thinking that maybe they were having even just a little bit of copyright issues, and I'm hoping that's why they didn't. Like, you should have put that on every intro. It
Yeah,
would have
it
been
should have
great.
been there should have been an updated version, but
Yeah.
there was. I don't know if you noticed it in the episodes. It was just the beginning of it.
Oh, just the
You
beginning.
would hear the doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, like it was sort of like the very
Oh,
fast
like when they're doing the recaps, or like right after the recaps.
in the episode.
Oh, throughout the.
Like part of a soundtrack. If you listen for it, it's just the big part, like the beginning, like twinkles of the piano before the song really goes dun 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 dun.
Oh, I'll have
It's
to.
that beginning part.
Yeah,
It's like peppered in.
this had such a good soundtrack too.
Yeah, like the pop music that they used was good.
Anybody who uses Billie Eilish, you got me hooked.
Oh yeah. But then the scored stuff was really, I mean, both of it, the pop
Oh
music
yeah,
and the score were very good.
absolutely. Yeah, so that's like one thing, but it just brought me back to the Golden Retriever. Same deal.
Yeah.
Golden Retriever in the intro of every single Goosebumps show you watch. You want to watch an episode, you got that Golden Retriever with the eyes coming out. And with the see, and yeah, I got to remember. I mean, those Goosebumps shows came out in the late '90s.
Mhm.
Like that CGI was not the best, but we still ate it up. We loved it.
Yeah, that opening, and of course the Are You Afraid of the Dark opening. I'm just thinking of the swing and the freaking clown Bobby.
Yep, yep.
Nightmare fuel. We need scary kid shows again. Well, I will say, I've been watching Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous because Angel recommended it.
What is that on?
It's on Netflix.
Oh, okay.
It just ended like last year.
I'll have to watch that.
There's going to be a new one. There was some scary shit in it.
I
For a
take it.
cartoon, I am on the edge of my seat.
Oh,
Let
I
me
guess
tell
I'm
you,
gonna have to watch this.
I am singing its praises. That show has me on edge.
Hey, you know I obviously trust you because you're the one who told me to watch this, and here we are.
There you go. You're
Just like that. Just like that. I literally watched it like 2 days after you said it.
Oh,
I was like, I'm watching it. I gotta do it.
oh, that makes me feel good.
Yeah. So I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna add it to my
You
list.
gotta. Well, then you really could thank Angel for that though, because
Yeah.
she's the one that got me to watch
You
it.
guys both have some great recommendations. I love
Oh.
it. So
Well, thank you.
I'll take it.
I always feel good when my recommendations work out,
Oh, absolutely.
because it always, when someone's like, "I watched it, but I didn't really like it," I'm always like, "Ugh."
Sorry. Sorry. Didn't mean to disappoint. It's just because everybody's taste is so different.
That's yeah.
Like it's so different, and you never know what anybody's gonna like.
Mm-hmm.
And like I try to like really when I talk to everybody, I just kind of really plan out what their vibe is.
Yeah.
Like you're not gonna see me out here like recommending Cannibal Holocaust to everybody. I can't do that.
No.
You just can't do it.
Total
But
segue. But did you see Mike Flanagan's joke about
I was
entry horror?
literally recommending Cannibal Holocaust. I posted about it, and Terrifier 2 is ruthless.
Well, and Serbian film and like
Martyrs.
Martyrs. I mean, very funny that list. I mean,
It's like,
clearly,
here's your gateway horror. Good luck.
way to
I mean,
traumatize.
you're really just. I feel like if anybody wants to get into horror and they watch all of those, everything else is gonna be like,
Cakewalk.
yeah, it's gonna be like Barney.
Yeah,
You're gonna be
no, yeah.
watching Barney.
But if you have some, I mean, that's also how you probably end a friendship. You're like, you need to
Yes.
watch these movies. That's it.
Absolutely, I love forcing my friends to watch like scary stuff. It's
Oh
my
man,
favorite
it's
thing.
the best.
Anything that makes them jump. I love when people jump because I'm not a big jumper. It's hard to get me to jump, but watching other people jump up, like when I saw Thanksgiving movie, there was
Mhm.
this like guy sitting in front of me. He was almost out of his chair sometimes,
Oh,
and I'm just like laughing because it's just funny to me. I love watching them jump.
well, it's funny. I will tell you, Jurassic World has jump scares. Camp
All right,
Cretaceous.
I'll take it. I
I'm
like a
very,
good jump
I'm,
scare.
like I said, very surprised. There's a hybrid dino in season 3. The scariest dinosaur out of any Jurassic material.
Are they short episodes?
Like 20 minutes.
Oh, okay, that's not
And
bad.
like season 1 and 2 are each 8 episodes. It's so fast. Season 3 is 10 episodes, and then it's like 11 and 12 episodes.
So how many seasons is it? 3?
It's 5.
Oh.
Yeah, it's like 8, 10, 11,
Well,
12.
I work Monday and Wednesday. I mean, Wednesday and Thursday. So I'll just watch it at work.
But you can bang them out so fast.
Oh yeah. Well, because what I like about Netflix too is you get the speed watch.
Yeah.
So I just put it on like 1.5, sometimes 2. If I'm rewatching a show, I'm watching it at 2 speed.
I forgot you could do that. I could
Yeah.
do that for a rewatch, not a first watch.
Yeah, it sucks because you can't do it on a TV.
It has to be on a computer.
It has to be a computer or your phone. That's the only
Gotcha.
way.
Oh yeah, I remember
So
seeing it on the phone, the option to do it.
yeah, so you can do it on the computer too. But no, if they're only 20-minute episodes, I can bang through a total.
It's so fast.
I'm watching like 2 of them.
But it's cool because I mean, not to go too much of a segue because this is a Goosebumps one, but it's also cool because
Yeah.
it takes place during Jurassic World,
Okay.
so it's like you're getting it from a different vantage point, which is kind of fun.
Perfect.
But anyway, let's finish
Yeah,
the horror land here.
back to Goosebumps.
So the kids, I mean, just to kind of quickly wrap it up, I know the kids get their hands on the spells,
Yep.
and they sort of do this whole switcheroo where they trick him into thinking Mar is
Gonna
um,
support him
going
and
to help him out,
Yep.
and it really just turns out he's sort of trapped in the book in a
Yep.
way, or he's in his trance,
They found a way to trap him
and they
almost.
trap him in the book.
Yep.
And so the parents don't burn; they get all of them out.
Yep.
And then I think, and then we find out that Kondu. This is where we sort of get the cliffhanger. Kondu possesses Brat.
Yeah. Well, because if you think about it, when they suck him into that false vision, all those souls come out from hell to take him down. All
Yeah.
those like military souls, almost like what was happening to Isaiah in the first episode.
Oh yeah,
It's if you think about it, it's kind of set up almost the same way with the fire and the
Mhm.
ground opening, people coming out of the ground, and they take Candu, and you're like, all right, this is all over, this is all done.
It was
And
also
then
very Drag Me to Hell.
yeah,
Also
and
Justin Long.
because that was also when Isaiah was shot,
Yeah.
and he's in the hospital. He's not going to survive. They tell the parents, and Margot decides to use the spell to save him. When she
Mhm.
did that, I knew that we definitely set up a segue for season 2. Just that alone, before I even get into the Kondu part, I was like, she's
Yeah.
using a spell to bring Isaiah like health and alive again. I was like, something's not going to sit right.
Well, that's not, yeah, because most stories that use magic and any sort of resurrection or healing, there's a sacrifice involved,
There's something involved.
right? There's always a cost.
Yeah, and I was like, we're gonna get a season 2 just from that. And then when they finished with Kondu taking over Brat, poor Brat, man. Imagine
That's
getting
it.
possessed by Harold, and now you're getting possessed by Kondu.
But that's the thing is he's playing like this like goofy 40-year-old English teacher.
Yep,
Then he's playing like an ever dead 17-year-old. And
yep.
now he's playing this like evil sorcerer.
From like the 1800s.
I mean, it's sort of he really is like is the acting chops that he has to
It's
sort of
everything.
the range is excellent. I love again totally love
Yeah.
this one.
And
But
when he looked in that mirror, that's when I was like, I remember the credits came up, and I was like, all right, when's season 2? Because you're like, so there has to be a season 2.
well
They
that's,
can't
that's the
cut this
thing.
off.
What are your hopes for season 2?
I'm trying to think of like what
Or predictions?
stories would be great. I mean, they're going to obviously follow the line of Isaiah,
Mm-hmm.
but now you think was Isaiah resurrected and also possessed by somebody? Is there
Mm-hmm.
going to be a new situation where he's kind of possessed by somebody?
Oh, that'd be
And what else does Kondu have in store? The better question is, what does Kondu want? Does he just want to keep sacrificing all these people, and that's his only goal, or is he going to have a new goal in the second season
yeah,
and
like
just take down the children now because they've
yeah.
ruined his plan in the first place?
Like what's his pivot? Yeah.
Yeah, I
That'd
think
be
they could definitely do another season of it.
Did
No
you
doubt.
have a story or two in mind that you would like to see out there?
I don't know any like. I mean, I think it would be cool if they did an interactive type of one.
That would be cool.
I know that's not. I I don't think it's a Disney capable thing. I don't know. Like
Yeah,
I know
oh,
it's.
they could totally. I'm sure they could totally.
I mean, anybody can figure it out. But I think to stick with that, like that kind of vibe of choosing your own fate. But I know a lot goes into it. I mean, it took them a long time to get that Bandersnatch from Black Mirror
Yeah,
figured out, and I can't even imagine how much goes into that. And
yeah. You'd also have to do a way to figure out like no matter how it ends, it makes sense in the story.
yeah, so it'll be interesting. I'm ready
That
for
would
it
be
though.
really cool because that was such a staple in the Goosebumps books at that one
Yeah,
point, right?
I mean, you had 5 years of books worth.
Yeah.
for that. That was such a big thing.
I would love an adaptation of Monster Blood.
Okay, I can see that.
And I thought
That's
we
a
were
good
gonna
one.
get a little bit of that with James,
Yeah,
because clearly when it exploded, that green ooze, like, that's the monster blood, right? But the monster blood is sentient, right? Or so I would love more because it was very blobbish. It was very much
yeah.
akin to the blob. So I would love if we can get some of that in there. Would be really cool. I remember the giant spider or ant.
Okay, yep,
I think I
yep.
remember that.
I
Some
think I
more
mean, they
giant.
have a decent amount of stories to choose from.
There's so
They s
many.
they still have so many that they can choose, and even just not naming some of these episodes off of the books and more of
Hmm.
the as a whole,
I
they
was
opened
going
up so
to
much.
just for funsies while we're here. I'm going to look up the Goosebumps novels.
I'm actually gonna be buying some more on
Oh
Amazon
yeah,
soon.
I would love to start.
Well, it's because I got the kid coming and everything, so, like,
Oh
I wanna get it, she's gotta read everything. Gotta give her the good
yeah,
stuff, the good stuff.
the original Goosebumps series. Let's see here. Dead House, the basement, Monster Blood. Right? That's definitely one I want
Monster Blood, yeah.
to. Girl Who Cried Monster. Um, I mean, they could do more of the Haunted Mask. I mean, that one had a sequel.
Yeah, and, I'm assuming they'll maybe touch a little more on Slappy. I mean,
We're getting more slappy for sure.
even if you think about it, like, the Slappy on the cover of Goosebumps is terrifying.
Oh yeah,
That thing is terrifying as well.
they had a lot of Monster Blood. I think there was more than definitely at least three. They had a lot of Monster Blood stories. Night in Terror Tower. I like that one episode of the show.
I think the Ghost Next Door would obviously be a great one.
Ghost Next Door.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Shocker on Shock Street. Remember
Uh,
that one?
I would love a Return of the Mummy. I love the Mummy ones.
Mm-hmm.
Just How to Kill a Monster would be nice. Like they just have so much that they could do, and I think they could all fit some way into
Don't Go to
this.
Sleep. That one was like a
Don't Go to Sleep.
reality.
That was a good one too.
I mean, there's so many good
I
ones.
mean, if you think about it, there's like how many, like 62 of them
So there's 62 of the original
of
series.
just the original, and then you got to include the.
Then there's all the spin-off stuff that they did.
Yep,
Tales to Give You Goosebumps. Give Yourself Goosebumps.
yep. You got a ton.
Goosebumps 2000 was when it came back. And there's the Horrorland series. So there was more within that.
There's just so many of them.
And then all of R.L. Stein's other stuff. I'm like, you probably want to just stick with Goosebumps, but
Yeah,
and Netflix has Fear Street,
yeah.
but I know he has other series as well. So I think there's just so much R.L. Stein material to adapt.
And I heard they're making another Fear Street.
Yes.
So I'm so excited. I love those movies so much.
Yeah, we were just
They,
talking about it when we did our Queer Live.
oh
Yeah.
my god, yeah. I meant to catch you guys, and I completely forgot. So
How dare you?
I just went back to rewatch it. I just pull it up and just speed watch you guys and listen to you guys.
It's all good. I love Fear Street. I mean, I think they said they're just doing one new standalone movie, but I hope they're lying. And it's like, surprise, it's another back-to-back trilogy.
I mean, if you think about it, they did so well. I remember everybody
Yeah.
talking about the Fear Street movies when they came out.
It was an event. I
It
mean, they
was,
owned the summer.
yeah, it was not just, oh, like I liked it because I found this on Netflix. Like, no, it was put out there and it was so popular because all the stories connected beautifully. They had
Mhm.
great kills. Oh my god, that bread slicer scene will forever be engraved in my mind.
I mean, really, it is a classic death scene. Like they
That's why it
really,
was on my bracket. I was shocked that it did not move on. I was like, "Have you guys seen it?" I was like, "Have you seen it?" I
people
was,
are biased. They're like, oh well, if it didn't come from an '80s slasher,
yeah, and that was just one of those things where you're just like, "All right, yeah, they're not gonna do it. They won't do it. It's on Netflix. They won't do it." And then they did it. You're like, "Okay, they did it.
well,
They did it."
I know, and I just love you get so much like subgenre, right? I mean, you're getting like supernatural slasher, you're getting witches, you're getting like so much stuff.
And
I
the
would, I mean,
cast was great. The
the
cast for all of them,
was
all three of them.
fantastic. Those kids were. top notch.
Yeah,
But any closing thoughts on the Goosebumps series?
I'm ready for more.
Me
Ready for
too.
more.
Well, thank you so
That's
much
it.
for doing this with me.
Thanks for.
You're like my
I love.
go-to TV person now.
I
I
love
love it.
being here. I watch a lot of TV. I watch a lot of TV. I watch a lot of movies. I try to like expand my horizons on everything.
Yeah.
Like when I can't choose, I got like spin wheels.
Oh,
So it's the best decision I made because I have to commit to it.
yeah.
So I forced myself to commit. I was like, whatever platform, whatever letter, and whatever number, I'm committing. And I
Wow.
mean, I've been introduced to some crazy stuff. I remember there was one like Flux Gourmet, wild ride.
Oh,
I was like,
yeah.
I never even heard of that movie prior to doing my spin wheel.
It's on Shutter,
So
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
wild ride. I was like, I don't even know what I'm watching. I mean, I love Gwendolyn so much.
Oh, I
She is gorgeous. She is phenomenal. I love her.
know. Yes. Yes.
So I'm a big show person though. I just got to keep up with them.
I know. There's a lot more. I mean, Chucky's coming back.
Thank God.
That'll be probably January. I think he's
And then
coming
we'll
back.
get in the Wednesday,
And then
hopefully.
Wednesday will be back for sure. Shining Vale's just about to be over. Trying to think what else. Well, we got The Walking Dead's coming back. Well, the Michonne and Rick show. I mean,
Yeah.
uh,
You have to go watch Lucifer. That's what
Lucifer. I should. Yeah,
you got to watch.
maybe I'll do like a recap for this show or something. Oh, I'll think of something.
We'll find something.
Well, thank you again, Chris.
Thank you.
Of course, and for everyone at home, thank you again for watching. Let us know what you think about Goosebumps. What are you looking for in season 2? What did you love about season 1? What were you disappointed in? We can hear that too. That's okay.
Yep. Everything.
Yeah. So we will catch you for our next TV series, whatever that ends up being.
Yes. Also, I did wear the merch today. Please go to their link and go buy their merch. It's comfortable.
Oh,
I
love
love
it.
I love it so much. I'm so happy. I yelled at Angel because I was like, "You do not promote your merch enough." I was like, "Stop it!" And it
Aw.
is such a comfortable sweatshirt. I love it. I got a coffee crib shirt. It's phenomenal. So
Oh,
go check their link. It's probably going to be somewhere
figures. Yeah.
in
We'll
there.
put all
In
the
there.
all the links to that is there. Oh, and then remind everyone where they can find you.
Twitter, Instagram, Threads. In case if Twitter goes downhill, that's the only reason. I do have a Slasher account, and I do have a YouTube account. I just have not posted anything. So if you want me to check out your videos, follow me.
It's
probably
all
gonna be
for
the
love
love
of
for
horror, right?
Yep. I'll listen.
Right. And we will catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.